Have you ever noticed how sometimes the fire inside doesn't burn you down, it builds something new? There's this energy, this anger that most people are afraid of. They suppress it, avoid it, or explode it. But at it, the real one, they make something holy out of it. Take Vincent van Gogh. This man didn't just paint, he bled on the canvas. In the span of 10 short years, he created almost 900 works. That's nearly one every day and a half. But it wasn't discipline. It wasn't some clever productivity hack. It was survival. A storm was living inside him, and painting was how he weathered it. In letters to his brother Theo, he once wrote, "I'm angry with myself. I feel like I'm lying in the bottom of a deep, dark well, with my arms and legs tied." But when you look at the starry night, you don't just see swirls, you feel motion. You feel the unrest, the vision, the ache. He wasn't just expressing pain, he was transmuting it. Even his portraits of peasants, worn shoes, a potato eater, each one told the story of the unseen, the uncelebrated. It was his anger at injustice which turned into empathy. When we talk about Dostoevsky, he doesn't write villains and heroes. He wrote humans, raw, flawed, raging, and broken. He wrote from the inside out, where shame and resentment hide. He didn't ask, "What's the plot?" He asked, "What do we do with the parts of ourselves we can't stand?" Both men lived in the tension between torment and creation, and somehow both found spiritual clarity through that struggle. The breakdown begins in what scientists call cognitive control. It's our brain's ability to pause, evaluate, and choose. In moments of emotional intensity, blood flow is diverted away from the regions responsible for planning and judgment, and redirected toward regions that trigger instinctive action. The system that usually acts as the brakes, like the prefrontal cortex, loses influence, and the parts of the brain that scream, "Do something now," take over. This is why during an anger episode, the body physically responds. The heart races, breath shortens, muscles tighten. It's not just emotion, it's chemistry. Neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and cortisol surge prepares you to fight or flee. Sometimes we act out when angry because it feels good, at least temporarily. That's because dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, can get released during aggression. It reinforces the idea that doing something is better than sitting with the discomfort. So you rage quit, you slam a door, you hit send on a harsh message, and for a second, it feels like you've taken back control. But that control is an illusion. The systems meant to protect your long-term goals have been shut down. And then the crash comes. When the nervous system settles, when blood pressure drops and breath returns to normal, those executive brain functions flicker back on. That's when reflection kicks in. Why did I say that? Why did I leave? What have I just done? Rage quitting isn't just a failure of willpower, it's a neurochemical hijack, a temporary shutdown of the very systems we rely on to be our best selves. But it's also something we can train for. In the Vedic texts, rage isn't just a reaction, it's a distortion of dharma, your clarity of purpose. And it usually comes from ahamkara, your ego. You rage quit when you've attached yourself too tightly to an outcome, when identity gets wrapped around winning, being right, or staying in control. In some indigenous cultures, the approach is beautifully physical. The Inuit, for example, don't yell when they're angry, they pick up a stick and start walking. Straight lines for as long as it takes. When they are done, they plant the stick into the earth as a symbol. This is how far my anger carried me. It's not about control, it's about movement, release, and reconnection with the land. Around 2000 years ago, the Roman philosopher Seneca described anger as temporary madness. He wasn't being metaphorical. He meant that in the grip of anger, we stop thinking clearly. We lose the ability to reason, to judge proportionately, and to see outcomes beyond the next 5 seconds. In his book, quite literally called On Anger, Seneca argued that anger doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from what we believe should have happened and didn't. It's not the insult that enrages us, it's our expectation of respect being broken. Although Aristotle had a different view. He believed anger wasn't always a problem. In fact, the total absence of anger could be a flaw. It could be a kind of passivity or moral numbness. In his Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle wrote that virtue lies in balance. With anger, the goal isn't zero, it's about the right amount, for the right reason, expressed in the right way. What he called the doctrine of the mean was about self-control, not self-erasure. He believed that some anger, what we might call righteous indignation, is necessary to confront injustice and protect our boundaries. Studies show that when we are angry, our cognitive systems literally begin to shut down parts of the brain responsible for flexibility and caution. Instead, our mind narrows. We see fewer options, we feel more certain, and we overestimate how accurate our judgment is. This is called the anger superiority effect. It's the illusion that our angry mind is the clearest one, when in fact it's often the most distorted. When our sense of worth is tied to being competent, successful, or in control, then failure doesn't just sting, it threatens who we think we are. And this is what we call an ego threat. And when we feel it, we are likely to react defensively, often by quitting the thing that makes us feel small. Rage quitting becomes a way to say, I didn't fail, I walked away. When we talk about anger, we usually mention fight or flight. But what really happened is that your brain's internal communication system goes haywire. The parts meant to assess, pause, and plan go quiet. The ones built for fast, emotional, reactive action takes over. So what do we do with this fire? We learn to sit with it, to understand it, to not run from it or be run by it. Anger isn't the enemy, but unexamined anger is. The crash after rage quit teaches us something. That the moment we felt most certain was often the moment we were least connected to clarity. But clarity isn't lost forever. The same brain that shuts down in anger can learn to pause, to breathe, to reframe. Some people channel their rage into art, others walk it off, some write, some build. The point is, you get to choose what you do with the fire. You can burn bridges with it, or you can light your path forward. Let anger be your signal, not your steering wheel. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to fight harder, it's to stay curious, to stay calm, to stay connected to who you are when the fire fades. And that's where the real power is. If this episode stirred something in you, stay with us. Subscribe to Code Neuron and support the channel. We are dismantling the truths of life one neuron at a time. I'm Sienna Vargas, and this is Code Neuron.